Clyde Recycling. We also have Jonathan Side, Managing Director for Side Recycling. We also have representatives from Tradeway Shipping Limited, Samantha and Emma. If you're here, can we see a wave? Right, you're welcome. We also have the president for GUTA, Clement Boateng. Clement Boateng, if you are here, can we get a wave, please? You're so much welcome, sir. We'd like to acknowledge the presence of some policymakers from the Ministry of Local Government. Ministry of Local Government, if you're here, can we get a wave? All right, you're welcome. Ministry of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry. If you're here, can we also get, you're welcome, ma'am. And finally, from the Environmental Protection Authority and also the Ghana Standards Authority, if you're here, can we see you, please? You're so much welcome. Now we're moving on and we're going to ask a very big question. How do public systems and infrastructure support responsible textile recovery in this practice? And to deliver this particular policy keynote on responsible waste management infrastructure and public systems, ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, join me welcome the Deputy Minister for Finance, Honorable Thomas Nyako Ampem. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
Thank you very much. Permit me to recognize all of you by referring to you as ladies and gentlemen. And to say a very big thank you to my sister-in-law, Honorable Joyce Bauer, for giving me the opportunity to come and interact with such wonderful audience. Let me say that I appreciate the opportunity that these organizers have given us. The Landfills to Landmark Summit 2026, for convening this timely and important platform. The theme, Trace, Account, Rebuild, speaks directly to a defining challenge of our time: how nations build systems that can sustain economic growth while managing environmental responsibility, market accountability, and long-term public value. Across the world, the rules governing trade, production, and material recovery are changing rapidly. Markets increasingly demand traceability, environmental compliance, supply chain transparency, and measurable standards across the full life cycle of products and materials. These developments are not distant global trends with limited relevance to Ghana. They are already reshaping the environment within which our industries, markets, cities, and institutions must operate. The implications are profound. Countries that are unable to track economic activity, manage end-of-life systems, and build accountable recovery infrastructure will increasingly struggle to remain competitive within the emerging global economy. This summit, therefore, is not simply an environmental conversation. It is fundamentally an economic transformation conversation. It is about how Ghana positions itself within the future architecture of trade, industrialization, and sustainable growth. Ladies and gentlemen, every day across Ghana, millions of people participate in highly productive economic activity: trading, transporting, repairing, recycling, designing, manufacturing, and creating value within markets that sustain livelihoods and entire communities. Yet, a significant proportion of this activity remains outside structured visibility systems, invisible to data, difficult to track, difficult to finance, and often difficult to integrate into long-term national planning. The challenge, therefore, before us is not informality itself. Informality has long been part of the resilience and entrepreneurial character of African economies. The real challenge is invisibility. Because when economic activities cannot be properly tracked, governments struggle to plan effectively. Revenue leakages increase, standards enforcement weakens, financing gaps persist, and opportunities for growth become constrained. In today's economy, visibility has become an economic asset. Data has become infrastructure, and traceability has become a prerequisite for competitiveness. That is why the work being championed by Landfills to Landmarks is both timely and strategic. What this initiative seeks to advance goes beyond waste management or textile recovery alone. It seeks to establish systems that improve accountability, strengthen recovery pathways, support livelihoods, reduce public costs, and create measurable economic value. Importantly, it also recognizes a critical principle that formalization should not be approached as punishment or exclusion. Properly designed formalization becomes empowerment. It extends opportunities, improves access to financing, strengthens market confidence, and enhances long-term economic participation. Ladies and gentlemen, textiles sit at the center of this discussion because the secondary textile economy intersects with trade, affordability, employment, environmental protection, local government administration, logistics, standards regulations, and public finance. The global second-hand apparel market is projected to exceed $350 billion United States dollars in the coming years. This is driven largely by sustainability concerns and circular economic models. Here in Ghana, Kantamanto alone supports tens of thousands of livelihoods. They are traders, tailors, recyclers, transporters, upcyclers, designers, and exporters. However, the broader issue extends beyond textiles alone. Plastics, electronic waste, organic waste, construction waste, and other material streams each require different recovery systems, different financing models, and different infrastructure responses. Each material stream carries economic value when properly managed, but each also poses substantial public costs when systems are absent. The policy challenge before governments, therefore, is straightforward. How do we design systems capable of recovering value before residual materials become unmanaged burdens on cities, assemblies, and public finances? The global circular economy discussion has increasingly arrived at one central conclusion, and that is sustainability requires infrastructure. Without sorting systems, collection networks, recovery facilities, recycling capacity, data architecture, and functioning secondary markets, circularity remains an aspiration rather than an operational economic system. This is why the conversation we are having today must be understood primarily as an infrastructure and financing conversation. For the Ministry of Finance, the central issue is how Ghana structures financing mechanisms and delivery models capable of supporting responsible recovery systems at scale. The country requires investable frameworks that can mobilize public capital, private capital, and development financing towards measurable outcomes. We require systems that support segregation, collection, recycling, recovery, and environmental accountability, while also protecting livelihoods and encouraging enterprise growth. Ladies and gentlemen, the discussion also comes at an important national moment. Ghana currently has made significant progress in restoring macroeconomic stability and rebuilding investor confidence through disciplined fiscal reforms and institutional strengthening. Recent improvements in Ghana's credit outlook and renewed confidence from international partners reflect the difficult but necessary work being undertaken to restore resilience and credibility within the economy. However, macroeconomic recovery alone is not sufficient. Economic growth must become more traceable. Trade systems must become more accountable, and development outcomes must become more inclusive and measurable. Because sustainable prosperity demands not only on growth itself, but on the quality of systems that support growth. Ladies and gentlemen, what is particularly encouraging about this summit is its practical orientation. Too often, discussions around sustainability remain theoretical, but transformation ultimately occurs through implementation. The practical demonstrations, market engagements, and technical discussions connected to this summit illustrates both the scale of the challenge and the scale of the opportunity before Ghana. If Ghana succeeds in developing practical systems that improve traceability, revenue visibility, standards compliance, environmental accountability, and recovery financing, then Ghana can position itself as a continental leader within the emerging circular economy landscape. This opportunity becomes even more significant within the framework of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. The future competitiveness of African economies will increasingly depend not only on production capacity, but also on supply chain integrity, certification systems, sustainability standards, and verifiable compliance frameworks. Africa, therefore, has a unique opportunity to embed traceability, accountability, and sustainability into its industrial and trade systems from the outset, rather than attempting costly retroactive adjustments in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, responsible recovery infrastructure must also be viewed as an industrial opportunity. Sorting centers, recycling facilities, repair hubs, digital tracking systems, recovery enterprises, and circular manufacturing platforms all represent opportunities for investment, employment creation, skills development, and enterprise growth. Properly structured recovery systems create opportunity and economic value while simultaneously reducing pressure on public infrastructure and improving environmental outcomes. Government, therefore, remains committed to working with credible partners who bring serious implementation capacity, strong governance frameworks, measurable outcomes, and long-term commitment to Ghana's development priorities. Effective delivery will require coordinated partnership between government, local authorities, development institutions, private investors, market actors, and research institutions. Public institutions must provide regulatory coordination, policy direction, and accountability frameworks. Private capital must support scalable and bankable projects. Assemblies and local authorities must remain central to operational delivery, and research and technical institutions must continue to strengthen standards, verification systems, and capacity development. Ladies and gentlemen, history shows clearly that the strongest economies were not built solely through resource extraction or increased consumption. They were built through systems, systems that create visibility, systems that build confidence, systems that strengthen accountability, and systems that transform economic activity into sustainable national development. That is the opportunity before Ghana today, to move from fragmented systems to integrated ones, from invisible trade to traceable commerce, from unmanaged waste to recoverable value, and from informality without structure to inclusive growth supported by accountability and opportunity. The work being advanced by landfills to landmarks is therefore environmentally relevant. It is economically strategic. It is institutionally important, and it speaks directly to the future direction of African development. Let us therefore be bold enough to lead, bold enough to innovate, and bold enough to build systems together that future generations will inherit with confidence and with pride. I commend the organizers, development partners, market leaders, technical experts, public institutions, and all stakeholders contributing to this important national conversation. The Ministry of Finance looks forward to continued engagement on financing pathways for responsible recovery infrastructure, textile recovery systems, and sustainable end-of-life management in Ghana. I thank you and wish the summit every success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Once more, we are reminded why we are here this particular morning. And most of the time, infrastructure conversations often sound very, very technical until you realize the kind of damage that it causes to our drainage systems and the entire communities. But I'd like to remind you once more that you should keep your eyes on the screens because we'll be having our QR codes here. We want to hear from you, we want to hear your comments, your questions, and any other thing you want to say on this particular account day. Before we continue in this morning's policy and governance sessions, we would want to take a brief cultural interlude, which will be presented by Steez Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Steez Africa.
Each week, 15 million of the Obroniwe wool finds itself along the docks of the global south. Each week, the coastal towns and their shores and their seas and their fish and the humans groan and moan under the weight of foreign ghosts. When did it get stuck in time? This once well-oiled machine of our name, and why have we not realized its rust? Somewhere, a dead man's denim lends the shape and sway of the Ghanaian hips. Somewhere, right here, a fisherman untangles fabric from the lungs of dying fish, and another nation cleanses its conscience by shipping Jamestown. It's forgetting, but Jamestown, old Furthermore, and the Dens who Delta do not have the luxury of forgetting, you see. The rivers can no longer speak, you see. Their mouths have been struck dumb by polyester prayers. They say that fine cloth hides many scars. Tell me, what does it mean to search for identity inside another man's collar? To zip oneself inside an alien dream? I too would like to be proud to share in my batik that clings to my figure eight. I too would that my culture was mass home produced and my lines did not have to choke under imported bills heavier than coffins. I too would that I'd wear my Ankara in a dinkra with pride. Surely the coastline skin and the guild congregation and the men baptized in salt would thank me. Surely even the smoke-stained sky would thank me. My ancestors would thank me. For it is not just the shores and the seas and the wetlands that carry this cross of oppression, you see. Even we have become foreign climates of ourselves.
Can you please the benefit? The bitter sting of cyanide getting into the veins of unborn children, twisting their limbs like branches struck by lightning. Can you hear the rivers choking, spitting up fish with bellies bloated like the lice we swallowed whole? Can you feel the soil trembling under the weight of your avarice? Do you not see the benefit? Ask the fishermen and they will tell you how their nets drag up ghosts. Ask the Jamestown men what it means when a coastline forgets its own sands, when their houses are uprooted, compressed into tighter spaces. I woke up in a body that was no longer mine. Strange hands groping skin, aliens panting, brawling. There was no one to defend who. Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, I came and you were not home. I am the keeper. I remember every name, every will, every river, every wound pressed into my flesh. Wounds become whispers and fractures have made rivers. Grief became seeds waiting to bloom, and still I rise. Steadfast as the tide, unyielding as the sun, and every stolen acre, every crushed voice, every shadowed home is the marrow of return, and I wait, patient, fierce, relentless, for what was taken will root again. What was broken will grow stronger, and the scarred will find their way.